Ready?
Yep, go.
Okay. Welcome everybody to this webinar on clients' rights and fair hearings. Just a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and available in about a week. Also, please type in and submit any questions through the window on your screen at any time. We will be reviewing them to get them to our presenters. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Kevin Aslanian. Kevin Aslanian is the Executive Director and founder of the Coalition for California Welfare Rights Organizations Incorporated, CCWRO. CCWRO is a support center formed in 1982 that provides support services to legal service programs throughout California. He is also their legislative advocate. Together, CCWRO and public benefit advocates statewide are currently working closely with state and county representatives to better the lives of recipients of public benefits in California. Without further ado, here's Kevin.
Okay. Hi, all. I just got myself off of mute. So let's go to slide number 1. That's my address, and that's my cell number. So in the future, if anybody has a problem with food stamps or CalFresh clients, you could call me on my cell phone, and after 5 o'clock will be fine also, and I'll be glad to help you folks out with any questions. CalFresh as a program is an entitlement, and that means that it doesn't matter how many people, it's not a closing appropriation, it's an open-ended appropriation. And the entitlement comes from a court case called Goldberg versus Kelly. And if people have an entitlement, then the entire process of law. And that means that they could get a hearing before their benefits are terminated. It's a little bit complex on food stamps, but and I still call it food stamps and CalFresh and SNAP go all over the place. The state hearing statutes are embodied in the Welfare and Institution Code 10950, and the state regulations are in Division 22, and you can go to our website at ccwl.org and find advocate resources and scroll down to state hearings, and there's a whole bunch of resources for hearings. Next slide, please. I forgot this, yeah. The next slide is CalFresh beneficiary rights. CalFresh beneficiaries have a right to accommodations for disability and other disability problems. You have a right to ask that the county help you with completing your application. People have a right to get the forms in their primary languages, and there's about 22 different languages that those forms are supposed to be available to folks on CalFresh. You have a right to have a county paid interpreter. You have a right to expedite services for CalFresh. That means that if you have less than $100 in resources and $100 in income, then you shall get CalFresh within 3 days. You have right to be promptly interviewed. And by state law, the interview has to happen within 7 working days. You have a right to see your case at any time because all of your information is in that case. And it's kind of weird because they used to have case files, and now everything is in the computer. So I guess you could go to the county and say, I want to look at my case, and they should bring your case up on the computer, and you could go through it. You have a right to get any documents from your case free of charge if you want to ask for a hearing. So all you have to do is say, I'm thinking about asking for a hearing, and I need some documents, and they will give it to you. And then finally, you have a right to ask. You have a right to ask for a hearing. And the regulations say that you have a right to be treated with dignity and courtesy and all this other good stuff. Next slide. In the state hearing process, there are county actors, state actors, there's an administrative law judge, and then which is appointed by the state, and then the county actor is the county has an appeals unit, and they have a county appeals supervisor, and then they have county appeals representatives. So when a person asks for a hearing, the case is signed to the county appeals representative. And if you have a disagreement with the county appeals representative, you could always talk to the county appeals supervisor. And of course, then there's a deputy director and the director of the welfare department and all those other things. There's a chain of command. Why would people ask for a hearing? Generally, as a rule, when a person comes to me and they have a problem with the CalFresh program, unless it's an immediate problem, for example, if someone comes and says, I got a notice saying that I was overpaid $500, I just request a hearing. Just ask for a hearing, and then the hearing goes into the system, and then you could talk, the county representative will call you up and say, what seems to be the problem? And you say, well, she doesn't understand the overpayment, and often they will call back and say, oh, we're sorry, the overpayment is wrong, and the overpayment disappears. So the point basically is that the way I generally function is, rather than me calling up the worker to find out what's happening and waiting for them to call me up or being on hold for half an hour, I just ask for a hearing because there's no immediate harm. Once you ask for a hearing, everything continues. Another example of where you would ask for a hearing is people get a notice of action saying, we're going to stop your benefits because we didn't get your STAR 7. Well, you may take that STAR 7 into the welfare office, give it to them. Next month, your CalFresh is stopped. Why? Because you did not dot the I on the STAR 7, or you failed to cross the T. And so therefore, they say, the STAR 7 is incomplete. And now you have to reapply and go through the whole process again. So what I always do, I ask for a hearing, and then I also tell them to fill out the STAR 7, take it in, and turn it in. And what the hearing does, gets you 8 paid pending, and I'll get to that. Issues that the fair hearing process does not cover is, for example, worker treatment, ADA, and those kinds of issues. If you got a problem with the worker, you have to file a complaint with the county. You can't ask for a hearing. Anybody could ask for a hearing by filling out the back of the form, and you could fax it to, next slide, yeah. Am I going too fast? I hope not. Okay, next slide, how to file for a state hearing. The one way to deal with it is you can go to my webpage, and I have state hearing forms that you could use. Where I told you, advocate resources, down to state hearings or fair hearings, and then there's the nerd drop, and you can find forms and a whole bunch of other information. So, or you could fill out the back of the form, back of the notice of action. And you can fill the back of the notice of action and fax the front and the back to 916-651-2789, or you could go to our webpage and scroll down on the left-hand side, and you'll find online fair hearing request place. And that link will take you to DSS, and you can ask for a hearing right online. Next slide is what to put on the request. Sometimes people put too much information on the request. And for example, if you put down that I want a hearing because I think there's three people living in my household, and you say 2. And then when you get to the hearing, you find out that they miscomputed your income. And the county will say, well, you can't talk about that. You could only talk about the household sides. So to make sure that clients have maximum flexibility, years ago in the previous century, we adopted the policy of saying the county action is wrong. That's the reason for the hearing. And that opens up the door for talking about anything at the hearing. Next slide is what the hearing is all about, is aid paid pending. Again, that means that if you have to ask for a hearing before the action takes place. And if you look at the back of the form, in the upper left-hand corner, there's a box. If you read what it says right underneath the box, it says, if you ask for a hearing before the effective date of the action, your benefits will stay the same into the hearing decision. And that could take 2 to 3 months. So that's why if they send you a notice saying, we're going to stop your CalFresh because you did not provide us with verification of income, you ask for a hearing. And then you turn in the verification of income. One thing it does, it guarantees you that next month they will get CalFresh. If you turn in the verification of income and they don't like it, and you don't ask for a hearing, your CalFresh will stop. And then the person has to go to reapplication, would have to endure hunger, and that's not good for our community. So therefore, we always ask for a hearing. 8 paid pending is supposed to be restored within 5 working days. So if you ask for a hearing on the 21st of the month, the 5 working days comes to the 28th. So that means on the 1st of next month, the CalFresh benefit should be in the same amount that it was in the previous month. On the other hand, if you ask for a hearing on the 28th day of the month, then the CalFresh benefits will be restored on the 5th working day following the 28th day of the month. So you have to do some counting. One bad thing about CalFresh is that there is no paid pending for recertification, because in CalFresh, and like CalWorks and Medi-Cal, you are certified for only 12 months. After 12 months, you become an applicant again, and they recertify you. So that's a real bad thing for the CalFresh program. However, that's just the way it is. So there's no 8 paid pending for recertification. So when people call up and they have a recertification problem, then rather than asking for a hearing, I get on the horn, start talking to the county to figure out what's happening and to make sure that they get their recertification completed. Next slide is adequate notice of action. You only have 60 days to ask for a hearing. It's 60 or 90, it goes back and forth. But anyhow, so after that date, you cannot ask for a hearing unless the notice is not adequate. And what is an adequate notice? An adequate notice that says, we're going to stop your benefits because you failed to provide verification. Well, what verification? The verification of my income, my resources, my birth certificate, my marriage certificate. What is it that I didn't provide you with? In fact, nowadays, they're supposed to be using the CW2200, which is a verification form that they're supposed to send to you when they request the verification. Or they basically say that we're going to stop your benefits because you have excess income. How much excess income? 100, 200? What is the income limit? Is the income limit 500 and now I have 600? Or is the income limit 700 I have 600? Which one is it? The notice has to be specific. The notice has to tell you specific what the rule is and what they're doing and why and how you could fix this issue. For example, if they say that we're going to stop your benefits because you failed to provide verification, they should tell you that if you provide verification within 10 days, we will restore the case. The notice is, if the notice is inadequate, then the 90 days or the 60-day time limit never started. So if a person comes to my office and in 2013 they got a notice saying that their food stamps are going to be stopped because they didn't provide verification, I asked for a hearing, I could reopen the case and I could get a fair hearing because the notice was not adequate. Or if the notice was in English and the client's primary language is Spanish, that's also an inadequate notice. So therefore, the 90 days never started. So whenever you go to a hearing and you want to, the client could basically raise notice of issue and say that this notice is inadequate. That's why this hearing is timely. What happens, next slide, is what happens at the hearing. And I should tell you, I've never done this. This is kind of strange for me, but we must go on. The hearing is generally, it's always tape recorded. So you walk into the hearing room, the client and the authorized representative sit on the right-hand side, the county and their witnesses sit on the left-hand side, and the judge sits at the head of the table. Generally, they have a flag there, and the judge basically explains the hearing process, and then the county welfare department and the county hearing specialist, the claimant, and the witnesses take the oath. You could bring anybody to the hearing if you want to, and you could bring your friends to the hearing to be more support. Then the county goes first. The county explains why they're taking the action. The county is supposed to give you a county position statement 2 working days before the hearing. So 2 working days before the hearing, you would go down to the welfare department and get the county brief or the county position statement. And that way the county explains in black and white what they really did and why they're taking this action. Then the claimant could cross-examine the county, and then the claimant presents his or her case, and then the county could cross-examine. And often, when I go to a hearing, I leave the record open to submit additional information. The next slide is the same as this slide, so we're going to skip that slide, and we're going to go to interpreters. The state provides interpreters. You must identify the language when you ask for a hearing. On the back of the hearing request, it says, what's your language? You could put down Spanish, Russian, Armenian, or whatever. The LJs are supposed to examine the interpreter to make sure that the interpreter is qualified to do this. Generally, what I do, I ask for a hearing, and then I wait and negotiate with the county, talk to them. If we can resolve it, we resolve it. If we can't resolve it, then what I do, I wait for the when we get a hearing date, 2 working days before the hearing, I go down to the county, pick up the county position statement, or your client could go down and pick up the position statement, and then they could and then they could postpone it. And how do you postpone the case? In CalFresh, you get 1 free postponement without any question. All you do is say, this is a CalFresh case, I want a postponement. And that way the claimant gets a postponement. They have the county position statement, they have it all in black and white, and they could take it to their neighbors, to their friends, or to the outreach worker if they want to help them understand what the problem is. If you ask for the second time for postponement, you have to have some kind of medical verification. If the position statement is not available 2 working days before the hearing, you automatically get a postponement. Often when you postpone or you go to the hearing, the judge asks for time waivers. And the reason they want a time waiver is because there's these penalties that they have to pay if they're late in writing up a decision. And I always give them the time waiver. The reason I give them time waiver, if I don't give them a time waiver, then they have to write up the decision real fast. And if they have to write up real fast, they will just deny the claim rather than grant the claim, because it's always easier to deny than grant the claim. How do you get a postponement? They could call up 1-800-743-8525. This is the next slide. Or you can fax a request in black and white to 916-651-2789. Next slide is no-shows. If a claimant does not appear at the hearing, that has to reopen the hearing with good cause within 10 days, then aid paid pending is restored. So that means that if you don't show up to the hearing and then they send you a letter saying that they send you a decision saying your case has been dismissed because you did not show, all you have to do is request a rehearing saying the reason I didn't show up is because I was sick, and they will automatically reopen the hearings. For CalFresh, they have the next slide is CalFresh hearing decision timeline. They have to issue a decision within 60 days. The next slide is the hearing record. After the hearing, you could ask for a copy. After the hearing decision has been issued, you could request a copy of the hearing tape. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. And if you want to ask for judicial review, you also have to ask for a transcript. Judicial review is where you take it to court. And finally, next slide is expedited hearings. Expedited hearings is when a person applies for CalFresh and they don't give you expedited CalFresh within 3 days. You could request an expedited state hearing. And you can go to our webpage and you can find, in fact, on our webpage, you can find an expedited state hearing request form. And you can fill that form out and fax it to 916-651-2789. And the hearing will be set up, will be held within 5 days, and a decision comes in within 10 days. That hearing will be telephonic. So that's my slow presentation. I'm not sure how we do with questions and answers, if there are any. Did I go too fast?
No, you did great, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So we're going to ask a couple questions, and then we're going to move on to the second presentation. The first question that we had was, Kevin, if you could elaborate on the specific issues that are appropriate for a state hearing. You know, for a lot of us that work in the day-to-day CalFresh outreaching, we don't know too much about the process, so we want to just make sure that people know how to recognize when a client has a situation that should be brought to a state hearing. Also, just a little bit of background for everybody on the call. You know, a lot of policies have been changing recently, and so we want to be able to help those clients that have maybe not had those policy changes added to their case. For example, the 200% federal poverty guideline lift and stuff like that. So yeah, Kevin, if you could just elaborate again on the specific issues that are appropriate for a state hearing, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I guess my practice has been there's two categories of two ways I deal with folks. Now, I'm an advocate. I don't think you guys could advocate for clients. So on just about any time a person has a problem, a person has a right to ask for a hearing any time, for any adverse action that the county takes against them. So what I do, whenever if the county sends out a notice of action, I ask for a hearing. It's very simple, because due process says that you are innocent until proven guilty, and the burden of proof is on the county. So if they have the audacity to send out a notice of action saying that they're going to stop my CalFresh, I have the God-given and due Constitution-given right to ask for a hearing. And if I ask for a hearing before the action takes place, I also get a paid pending. So I never basically judge what you should ask for. I mean, if they want to ask for a hearing, ask for a hearing. On the other hand, if you're dealing with cases like recertification, you can ask for a hearing, but that's not really going to resolve the problem. That's because then they need to go down to the county. For example, if a person comes to me and December the 3rd, and they say, well, I had my recertification was due in November. I didn't do it, and now I didn't get my CalFresh benefits. Well, a fair hearing is not going to do anything for them. So what I would do, I would just tell them to go down and reapply. And once they go down and reapply, that will wake them up, and then we'll do the recertification. Everything will be okay. So I hope it's hard to say. I mean, I really can't say what. This case you ask for a hearing. That case you don't ask for a hearing. It's basically if the client isn't happy, they have a right to a hearing. Is that responsive at all?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. One more quick question. You talked about the NOAAs, if they're, different ways that they could be inadequate. Could a client ever say that a NOAA was inadequate because it was just too confusing, or is that something that's not granted typically?
Confusion, it's basically notice of action is adequate if it explains to you. It's confusing in that, for example, if they say that you have excess income, that's confusing. You know what I mean? If the notice doesn't explain, I guess the answer is yes. If it's confusing, that's because the notice does not explain why they're taking the action. And they have to, actually, a notice of action that states the conclusion is not an adequate notice, because all conclusions are based on premises or elements. So the notice has to have all of the various elements from which they derive the conclusion. And if the notice is simply a conclusionary statement, like you have excess income, that's a conclusionary statement. It doesn't tell you what the elements or what the premises of that conclusion is. If it doesn't show you the premises, it's a bad notice. If it shows you all the premises, then it's a good notice.
Great, Kevin. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. So just a reminder, everybody, you can type in your questions at any point in time during this presentation that is going to come up right now. It is helpful to get the questions ahead of time so we can sift through them and make sure everybody gets their questions answered. So again, thank you so much to Kevin for presenting on that. I know you're an expert in this field. And moving right along, we're going to be hearing from Amanda Schultz. Amanda Schultz works as the CalFresh Outreach Director for San Diego Hunger Coalition. As a part of her role, Amanda facilitates the CalFresh Task Force, a convening of more than 50 community-based organizations and county representatives working to increase CalFresh participation through training, education, coordination, and systems change. Amanda also serves as the point of contact for 12 San Diegan organizations participating in the CalFresh Outreach contract. So without further ado, here is Amanda.
Everybody, good afternoon. I apologize because I didn't pull up the presentation, but here we go. Okay. Hopefully that looks the way it should to everybody. Does that look right? Okay. So my name's Amanda. I work with San Diego Hunger Coalition. I'm really excited to talk with everyone about tracking and reporting. So just to build on Kevin's fantastic presentation, today we're going to be talking about how you can leverage some of your tracking and reporting tools to be able to help you better assist and advocate for clients. And I think this will fit really well if any of your organizations decide to assist clients in moving forward through the appeals process or working directly with your county or legal aid to address any concerns that they have regarding their CalFresh cases. So today we're going to talk about, we have 3 learning objectives. One, hopefully you walk away from this presentation feeling like tracking is doable, that it's something that you can integrate into your organization, that it's something that will be helpful for your organization, and also that you walk away with a list of both required and potential items to track, as well as templates that your organization can consider using when thinking about tracking. We recognize that a lot of your organizations probably already have fantastic tracking systems in place, and maybe it's just a matter of maximizing the potential in usage, or maybe it's a matter of kind of taking a closer look at what are the things you really want to track and how can you make your systems work well for you. So the first thing you really want to take a look at is what are the things that your organization would like to track, and and what would be most helpful to your organization. As a part of the California Department of Social Services contract, there are specific deliverables, but there may be other things that you or your organization would like to track to be able to better assist clients for the purposes of things like fund development or internal growth, or maybe it's for liaising more closely with your county and helping them identify case issues. And so for the CalFresh contract, I think everyone's really familiar with the items that need to be reported on. Number of initial applications submitted. Of those applications, how many have been approved, number of SAR 7 submitted and recertifications submitted, and then also the number of individuals that fit into the categories that are listed on the right. So as our priorities kind of shift from application submission to approval, I think organizations we are really shifting our internal practices as well. Obviously we are always focusing on making sure that individuals who are eligible for benefits are receiving them, but how can we use our tracking system to really help us be able to do that? So the first thing that we kind of want to do is dig deep additional items that we can add to our tracking. So it could be something like verifications. Do we want to take a closer look at what verifications are necessary and which of those have been turned in? Taking a closer look at interview completion. We know this is another area where people tend to fall off. If they have missed their interview, have we been able to help them reschedule that? If they were able to go through with the interview, are there outstanding documents that still need to be turned in, and how can we help them do that? And then finally, eligibility determination. If it was determined, do you feel the determination was appropriate? And if there's any room for client advocacy, what does that look like and on what grounds? I think it's really helpful for us to have all of that information in one place, because when we're assisting with multiple cases at the same time, sometimes it can be difficult to lose track of all of those different email threads and wisps, and being able to have everything in one spot so that when that client calls or when we get that email from the county liaison or hear back from the appeals process, and being able to access all of that information at once and quickly can make our work a lot easier and hopefully make it more effective for the client. So other areas that you may want to consider tracking for your own internal programming is the number of people that are in each CalFresh household, the benefit amount. Those are both really helpful, especially when looking at grant writing and being able to quantify the impact that your work is having on individuals, families, and communities. That can really help grant makers kind of conceptualize the work that we're doing, however kind of nebulous it may be or complicated. Other things that are really helpful to be able to track are reasons for the denial. So as Kevin was talking about, moving through the appeals process, it's really helpful for us to go back then later on and take a look at, wow, there are 10 people that I helped this month that were inappropriately denied because of student eligibility definitions. And my tracking that will allow me to be able to go back and reflect and look at areas that I would like to follow up on. Also taking a closer look at county office or caseworker assignment. If you're able to get this information, figuring out where the issue is stemming from can be really helpful in preventing or resolving it in the future. So if I know that there is a particular county office that for whatever reason is having a hard time interpreting those student eligibility guidelines, that makes it a lot easier for me to be able to go to my county staff and ask them about the possibility of doing some sort of eligibility training around student eligibility or verifications for homeless or whatever the issue is that you've identified. And there may be other issues that are specific to your county or your program that would be helpful. So once you've identified those issues, then you want to take a closer look and develop a system that's going to allow you to easily track them. It could be an Excel sheet, or it could be something like a customized database. So there are databases out there that are specific to CalFresh and Oasis and Sightly is a great example of a database that's been built out and utilized by numerous organizations across the state to focus on CalFresh. It can be also used for other social service programs. There's Point Care, Salesforce, there are a variety of different databases out there, but really you just want to make sure that whatever tracking system your organization is using works well for you and for the rest of your staff members. So the easier it is to track them, more likely it's going to be integrated and successful in helping you reach your goals and helping you better help your clients. So we're going to go through a couple of examples. I just wanted to share, this is a big shout out to Feeding America San Diego. They've been doing some amazing work at taking a closer look at their tracking systems and really, digging in to figure out how they can make their tracking systems work for with you. So this is kind of the before, and this is a fantastic place to start. So if your organization is looking for a place to start with their tracking of CalFresh issues, this is a great model. This is what Feeding America was using in 2010. You can see that they're tracking the number of individuals in the household. They're looking at the language. They have a notes and phone call column. They looked at the date the application was sent. And then the final approval or denial. They looked at benefit amount and then denial comment. So this is where they're starting to look at what is the reason for denial if it occurred. So again, great place to start. They see down here you have your total monthly benefits. It's really easy to pull out in a report. Oops. So jumping ahead to 2014, this is Feeding America San Diego's current database. You can see it's a little bit more comprehensive. There are a number of different tabs down there, but I think that the one that seems like could be the most helpful and ways for people to conceptualize what this could look like is the tab that's open here with applications. So we can see that they've included a column for race and ethnicity. They have columns for all of the different kinds of verifications. So well, sorry, I should back up. They have the submit date, and then they have all of the different verifications. So you can see that this individual has submitted their ID. They're missing their income verification. They have submitted their proof of residency. They're missing their shelter potentially. They've submitted utility and social security number. So that can be really helpful for your organization. If you're helping a client submit all of that information, you know what still needs to be followed up on to provide a complete application. They also...
this is Stephanie. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't think you're on slideshow, so it's hard to see the tracking form.
Oh, no. Okay. I think it's on. No, that's really helpful. It's on my page, but it must be...
Sorry, I was just going to let it go, but this seems like this is a really good chart, and I just wanted folks to be able to see it.
Yeah, I wonder how it might be a part of this PowerPoint presentation. I apologize, guys.
Sorry about that. But if it's okay with you, we can just post the slides later.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I apologize it's so small. I wish I could. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Here we go. Hopefully that helps a little bit. You can see this is the submission date, and then all of the different verifications that are present. They also have, it looks like for their emergency expedited, they have follow-up times put in there and spaces for individuals to reconnect with them to make sure that the process is going smoothly, answer any questions, provide any follow-up as necessary. So the next thing is once you have a tracking system in place is really taking a look at how you can make that data work for you. Once you're in the habit of entering that data, you really want to also think about running reports regularly. So that's where the data is going to become really helpful in identifying systemic trends and really figuring out where are the areas that we can improve our programs internally, but also take a look and talk with our counties about how they can improve their programs and what are the best places to do so. When thinking about developing asks for some of your county workers, it can also be really helpful to have all of this information handy, right? So when we're sending an email to Kevin and we have a specific issue that we want to be able to talk to him about, making sure that we have all of the basic information is incredibly important for Kevin to be able to move forward and know exactly what's going on and how he can better assist us. So making sure we have things, information there to provide him can be really helpful. When I would suggest having a release of information definitely signed by the client before you share any of this information, but making sure that you have things like their information, whatever they're willing to share with the advocacy organization or with the county. So I guess this slide is specifically looking at how to share that information back with the county and telling them what information you need from them. Okay, so again, as we were talking about, in addition to individual client advocacy, developing a tracking system and running reports allows us to be able to identify trends that need to be worked on. We similarly, share Kevin's views at Hunger Coalition about the importance of escalating case issues. And in addition to that appeals process, work really hard with our county to try and take a proactive approach to addressing some of those trends that we see. So when we see people needing to appeal multiple times for student eligibility or for not implementing that the modified categorical eligibility change for gross income test, we bring that information back to the county and try to address some of those things and make sure that it's not happening in the future. So definitely prioritizing what those issues are. If we have 20 cases of MCE and 2 or 3 of student eligibility, we might start with the MCE first and then move to students when we have time and capacity. And then also, starting with easy wins, making sure that especially when you're developing that relationship and it's new, what are the areas that are easy to address and build strength from there, and creating value for the county too, and recognizing that these are issues that not only help clients and community organizations, but help the county in better utilizing the resources available to help individuals and making that easier so that clients don't have to reapply and they're not wasting precious staff time processing reapplications. Rather, they're able to process those FAR 7s when they come in a day or 2 late, or when they come in and might be missing one piece of information. How do we empower clients and staff members to be able to take that and move forward? So final considerations, obviously knowing our CalFresh and knowing when to advocate, there's plenty of information out there and resources to take a look at and better understand. As Kevin said, when in doubt, you exercise your rights, definitely. If you are looking for program guide information or language to help you better understand what's going on, the county program guide language, our county San Diego Health and Human Service Agency does a great job of posting their information online. There's also the California Department of Social Services website where they post all the letters and notices so that you're abreast of all of the program changes as they occur. Foodstampguide.org is another great site that kind of distills down and makes all of that legal language easy to understand and implement. Also, there's a SNAP listserv where we're constantly throwing different questions and resources back and forth. And Legal Aid Society and obviously Kevin's group, I apologize, are fantastic resources. So understanding your county and really what's the best way to advocate is another important step. And if you're able to, working with your county to develop a system that works for everyone is definitely a best practice. So I didn't include my contact information, but I would be happy to share that, and I think Stephanie can send that out through the listserv, and we're happy to answer questions or troubleshoot or share best practices that seem to be working well for us here in San Diego County, or connect you with other community organizations like Feeding America San Diego that are doing great work with their tracking and reporting systems.
Great, Amanda. Thank you so much for that presentation. That was very, very informative. We have one question right now for Amanda. Somebody wanted to know if you had an example of when the process for tracking and working with the county has helped you. Just anything specific people can try to wrap their brains around.
Sure, absolutely. So when I was talking about student eligibility, that was actually an example that we ran into. We initially thought that it might just be one issue that we were seeing here or there, and then once we checked in with our community organizations, we recognized that that was an issue that we were seeing across the county and across staff offices. And so we were able to come work with our county and bring forward a list of individuals. At that point, I think it was more than a dozen individuals that within the last 2 to 3 months had been inappropriately denied for student eligibility reasons. And so by presenting all of that information together in a clear and concise way, the county was able to recognize that this was an issue that definitely needed to be resolved. They were able to recognize that it was an issue going on at multiple county offices, and that it made sense to do an all-staff training rather than just training 1 or 2 individuals or doing some sort of corrective action measure that was specific to a particular staff member. So as a result, the county staff members were trained, and we updated some of the program guide materials and created new worksheets. And so I think moving forward, there are still issues here and there that pop up, but I think that there's a much better context to move forward from, and it's helpful to have that kind of working rapport that we all know that we're kind of working together on this.
Great, thank you. All right, so we have a few questions. The first question, I'm just going to toss it to whoever wants to answer. Can you ask for a fair hearing when your eligibility worker doesn't return your call after 5 to 7 attempts?
I'll defer to Kevin on that one.
Yeah, the answer
Kevin?
is no. No, you don't ask for. You cannot ask for a hearing for that. What you could do is you can meet with your counties. In fact, to elaborate on what Amanda was saying, what we've done is we have every two months we meet with the county, and we come up with issues, and then we have proposed solutions to the problems. And this is sort of an issue that if this is happening, you could basically put that on the table and say, hey, these are the types of issues that we're having. How can we fix this? Like I said in my presentation, you cannot ask for a hearing because the worker's not treating you right. You could only ask for a hearing if they took an adverse action against your benefits or delayed approving or acting on your application.
Okay, that's very helpful. And then we have another question. Somebody is referencing a time that their client was denied benefits for failing to provide Social Security cards, not numbers. I suppose they did provide the numbers. And they wanted to know if this is illegal, basically.
That is absolutely, completely, and grossly illegal. In fact, I mean, the county is able to verify, they could verify your identity by the mere fact that you give the county your Social Security number. They should never ask for a Social Security card. As long as you give them the Social Security number, they could go into meds and they could verify your identity. And they could also verify the Social Security. They have this bad habit of doing that. And if you have a meeting with the county, you could ask them, why can't you verify? I mean, are you guys that overworked? And I mean, are you guys that underworked and over moneyed that you need all this paper? And they will cave in and change the policy, because you need to also look at the county policies. You have county policy and procedures. And if the policy is that they should ask for a Social Security card, that's wrong.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kevin. Sorry, were you going to say something, Amanda?
Yeah, I was going to say, to expand on what Kevin was saying, I think that the few instances where we've seen that here is when Social Security numbers aren't able to be verified, and so there have been a couple instances where those Social Security numbers have been questionable, and so I'm not sure if this is an appropriate action. Kevin, maybe you can comment back, but we've had our county ask for Social Security cards if they're not able to verify the Social Security number being provided.
Yeah, and that's pretty rare, by the way. I mean,
Right.
as a habit, I mean, I'll bet you the amount of money that when this happened, they already had the Social Security number. They just wanted to have a card. They wanted to see the Social Security card so they could take copy the card for some reason. I mean, I understand that a problem, and I think that's pretty rare.
Okay, thank you.
Happen.
Yeah. So we have another question. What kind of advice would you give to agencies that don't have great working relationships with their counties? I would say particularly counties where clients have a hard time getting a hold of eligibility workers, and maybe the working relationship with the county and the CBO is not that great. Do you guys have any other recommendations?
Well, you could talk to Stephanie. Stephanie could talk to me, and we could talk to CWDA, and I would be glad to arrange a meeting with the county to set up a meeting where, and we could set up a meeting with the county and come up with some issues, and I could even come in there and start off the first meeting where you guys establish a rapport. I've done that in Sacramento, and I'll be glad to, if that's happening, let us know. I don't know, Stephanie, does that sound like something that we could do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So just let us know, and then we'll be glad to work with you on it.
That's great. That's very generous of you. So we had one question. I'm not sure that I fully understand what this person wanted to say, so if you guys want to send in a follow-up, that's fine. What he wrote was, is there a better way to get a status on an application through a community-based organization for clients that were served that month?
Is there a better way to get...
I think I might have an idea. I'm guessing that this refers to the new requirements for the California Department of Social Services contract that we need to be able to track the status of an application that we submit. Does that sound appropriate? Right. So I think that each county is a little bit different, and this probably goes back to why it's so important to be able to develop a relationship with your county. Most counties have some form of phone line that you can call into, and sometimes that ends up working, especially if there's an automated piece where you can enter the client's last name or date of birth or last four of their Social Security number to determine where the case is in the process. So if you just need to determine if the case is approved, pending, or denied, that might be a good start. Other counties have specific email lines. Our county has a set of liaisons that community organizations can connect with to determine the status or advocate about a case. But I think, like Kevin was saying, it's really important to begin to build those working relationships and really be able to talk with them about how this, in the end, helps the county as well in being able to better serve and improve the programs that they're offering.
Yeah, once you establish a working relationship with the county, then they will be glad to accommodate you in a sense. But if you don't have a working relationship with them, they will just freeze up on you, say, hey, we need a release of information before we could give you any information. That's sort of, I'm sure that's the response that you've been getting, and for that you have to basically work, try to find a way to, and we can help you with that. Does that make sense, Amanda?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're happy to share best practices too.
That's great. Thank you so much. We have some generous. Thank you for the generous offers here. Santa Barbara County apparently is requesting that help. And then we have one last question. Oh, somebody from Santa Barbara says that they're very excited that you were able to talk about that.
We'll connect you afterwards.
That's cool.
Yeah. So the last question, just a little bit more direct here. Somebody was wondering if Feeding America San Diego would be willing to share some tracking system templates.
Yeah, I was told that they were willing and interested in sharing some of those templates. So maybe the best way to do that, if there are specific organizations that are interested, you can contact me, and I'd be happy to do an e-introduction or make that connection directly. I think they're really excited and happy with the systems that they have in place, and they're glad to be able to share that. I know they did a short presentation at one of our CalFresh Task Force meetings sharing that information. So.
Great. Thank you so much. Sorry?
Sorry, Francesca. This is Stephanie. I just wanted to really quick ask one short question of Kevin. It's just a clarification. So Kevin, in your presentation, you talked a little bit about ALJs, and I think that maybe not everybody knows what an ALJ is, so I was hoping you might be able to expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, an ALJ is an administrative law judge who has 5 years of they're all lawyers. They have to have at least 5 years of legal experience of being a lawyer. They're appointed by the State Department of Social Services, and they come into the county, or they do you can do telephone hearings too. That's another thing I didn't say. I do hearings all over the state, and people in LA, San Diego, San Bernardino, and generally the way you do the hearing, you ask for a telephone hearing. And that way they call you, and then they could call me, and we do a conference call, and that's how we do hearings. That's how I could do hearings throughout the state. So if anybody needs representation, I can represent them. But an ALJ is basically an administrative law judge appointed by the director of the State Department of Social Services, Will Lightburn.
And even though they work for the state, they're neutral, right?
Allegedly. Okay, there's no neutrality in America, okay? but they are supposed to be neutral, but they do work for this. People need to understand that the state is the supervisor. The county are simply the agents of the state. Ultimately, the State Department of Social Services is responsible for the CalFresh program, and the counties simply are their agents. So it's like the supervisor is, and then we are the customers. So that's the legal relationship between the counties and the state. So, I mean, they are pretty impartial, not as impartial as I would like, but it's better than most other hearing systems. Just look at the unemployment DV system, it's pretty bad.
Okay, thank you so much, Kevin. That was great, great information to have. Again, thank you so much to Kevin Aslanian from CCWRO and Amanda Schultz from the San Diego Hunger Coalition and Stephanie Nishio for organizing. We will be sending out the webinar recording in about a week, so stay tuned for that. And that's all, and thank you all so much.
And happy holidays.